Hi, and thanks for joining me and giving me your attention, which I think is our biggest commodity and resource these days. We're going to be talking about creating your organization's business agility strategy, how to do it, and what to look for. My name is Lisa Adkins, and I'm an Agile coach and a leadership coach. I realized yesterday that my career so far has been exactly 28 years long. Now that's not a big deal, but this year marks the exact split between the first 14 years, when I was a plan-driven project manager, working my way up the ranks to bigger and bigger projects and being director of project management offices, to this last 14 years, being an Agilist and making the shift to this whole new mindset and way of working, and in helping create the profession of Agile coaching and dedicating myself to that for the last 14 years. And so now I work at the leadership and at the board level. This is where we've been. The notion that an organization is a machine that we can take apart and run indefinitely like that forever. That's the whole predict and plan mentality that I was working on in the first 14 years of my career. The idea that a project could be broken down into its component parts, people could do their piece, and somehow it would come together and run. It hardly ever came together and ran. Now, here's the shift we're in on the whole planet related to organizations. The notion that the machine model works is breaking down. Instead, we're understanding so clearly we're understanding that organizations are much more like ecosystems, like this rainforest. My gosh, the notion of managing a rainforest is preposterous, isn't it? Yet, we're trying to apply those mechanical methods and processes to an environment that's a lot more like a rainforest. It's ambiguous, it's ever-changing. Think about your business environment. Think about the iPhone in your pocket, how much that has changed, how much it's enabled in the last few years, and the change is just increasing. It's not letting up. So, what is business agility and how does it have to do with this? Essentially, business agility at the core is the capacity and willingness of your organization to adapt and create and leverage change for the customer's benefit. Now think about this, leverage change rather than running from it. In the machine model, we ran from change. We tried to pretend like it didn't even exist. In the notion that organizations are ecosystems, we understand changes are going to come again and again and again, whether or not we want them. They're going to keep coming. So we can leverage that change for customers' benefit, but it also allows us to leverage that for our organization's benefit and our workforce's benefit. While everything is changing, the one thing that can remain constant is our ability to work with change. Wouldn't that be great? No matter what change came, whether or not we wanted it, we would be able to work with that change, and the way we work with the change is the thing that remains constant that we can rely on. So that's the idea. How do we create the capacity and willingness in organizations to do exactly that? Business agility. Now, if you're like most organizations, Agile came in through the IT door. Fair enough, fair enough. The Agile methods were created by a bunch of IT people. Here's the thing though, the values and principles up underneath those methods of working help us adapt to this complex, ever-changing, unpredictable world. They work for the entire organization. So the idea that your organization is only as agile as your least agile division is really coming to light now. But here's the thing, business agility is a new thing. We don't have a lot of success stories yet, and we don't have a lot of people who've walked this path yet. So we need structures to help us make sense of it. One of the best structures I've found is this model called the Domains of Business Agility. I'm going to give you an introduction to this model as a powerful thinking tool. I'm going to give you a high-level introduction to this model because it is documented so completely, and you can get the PDF of it at the Business Agility Institute website. Now, this model is created by over 70 Agilists who have an expertise in business agility all over the world, all different parts of the world. And so it expresses the real-life experiences and expertise of those people. It's not something that's a theory, it's something that's coming from ground up experience. And that is also part of the nature of Agile, coming from ground up experience rather than a good theory. So it's a thinking tool, and I want to introduce you to the pieces of this thinking tool. Because what it does, once we understand those pieces, is that we can start to host the pivotal conversations in the organization that have us truly confront how much agility do we want and do we think we can actually get it. All right, so the first piece of this model, the heart of it, right in the center, is the customer. So regardless of who your customer is, your customer has one thing in common with everyone else's customer. They provide the organization with its purpose. They provide the organization with its purpose. We can always come back to that purpose. And if we do that, then everything aligns around delivering customer value. Leadership would prioritize the customer over its own good as an organization, potentially. Think about that. Think about the orientation that we believe that if we serve the customer, profit and growth are going to come. And when leaders choose not to prioritize the customer over the company, they would be transparent about that to their workforce so that we know what we're working on. We know why we're working a certain way. So the customer is the heart of the model, and then there are 4 dimensions we're going to talk about. The first is relationships, then leadership, then individuals, then operations. So relationships, let's talk about this dimension. There are 3 pieces of this: workforce, board, and partners. So the workforce, obviously, people who deliver customer value. The board is the highest expression of shareholder intent and ownership. And partners, everyone in your value stream, strategic partners, suppliers, distributors, everyone who enables your business to run. So workforce, let's talk about that one. The business agility goal of workforce is to have an empowered, engaged, and agile workforce. You would know you have this because the processes that support people allow them to work with uncertainty and allow them to work with agility. Now the board. The goal of the board is to promote agility starting from the board so that an adaptable market vision can come true, so that we remain adaptable even in the face of all these market pressures. For that to happen, there has to be a useful and constant two-way conversation between leadership and the board so that the board can support leaders when they prioritize the customer over the company. So partners. The business agility goal for partners is that the entire partner ecosystem enables agility rather than restricts it. If your organization can deliver customer value quickly, but your partner can't get it in the hands of your customer quickly, well, that's a problem from a business agility standpoint. So your business agility goal here with partners is governance, procurement, contracts that all prioritize collaboration and bringing your strategic partners right into your organization's value streams so that their delivery alongside your workforce is seamless. So let's look at the leadership dimension. 3 pieces here: people management, one team, and strategic agility. So people management, this is the thing that defines the relationship between individuals and authority in your organization. One team is the idea that we could have a culture of collaboration across individuals, teams, divisions, the whole organization. And strategic agility is the structure of individuals, teams, and divisions such that we have a true shape of an agile organization. So let's look at the people management domain. So the goal here is that there's a supportive management layer for agility in the whole organization. I mean, let's think about it. People leave or they stay in your organization because of the managers they have. And in Agile, managers still have a role, but it's different than telling people what to do. Instead, it's creating an ecosystem within which results happen and flow smoothly. So managers would be acting more like coaches. They'd be removing impediments. They would be championing Agile, and they would be helping teams deliver not by telling them what to do, but by creating an environment within which results can happen. So the one team dimension. The goal here is to create a one-team culture that overrides divisional allegiances. Just imagine that for a minute. Imagine your organization communicating and collaborating seamlessly across the whole organization. To do that, it requires leadership to create systems and structures and processes all designed for transparency and collaboration. And it's possible, and that's the goal. Strategic agility. The goal here is to have an adaptable market strategy that can withstand the changes that are inevitably going to happen. What leadership's role is here in creating that is they empower their workforce to join with them in having that adaptive market strategy come to life, because they communicate what that strategy is, and they communicate when they make strategy decisions. And in addition, we would have a culture here of testing business models, of not believing that our assumption about what our customer wants is correct, but testing it all along the way so that we know if we're building something our customer actually cares about and wants to buy and wants to become loyal to us about. So now we come to the individual's dimension. 3 pieces here: growth mindset, ownership and accountability, and craft excellence. Growth mindset is having the belief that we are all changing and cannot know everything up front, so an environment of experimentation and learning from failure is welcome. Ownership and accountability empowers teams and individuals. And craft excellence are the techniques we use to deliver high-quality work in an agile way, no matter what our function is. So the goal here under growth mindset is to promote a culture of learning and experimentation. Listen to this one: free from the fear of failure. We actually learn best when we can experiment and learn and move on. If we have a fear of failure, then we're busy hiding and trying to look good and get it right all the time. So the goal here in this individual's domain is to create a culture that everyone supports about learning from failure, and that that's okay. So for the ownership and accountability domain, the idea is that we have an empowered team with authority and autonomy and accountability for their work. We know that we're achieving a high level of business agility here if the team truly is responsible and accountable to the quality of the work, the output of the work, and the outcome of the work, how their product works in the marketplace. And so for this to work, we need people to empower teams and to support them as they take up a new kind of autonomy. So the goal of craft excellence is for everyone in the organization, no matter what their function, to produce high quality work product incrementally aligned to a customer outcome. Yes, even people internally in the organization like HR and legal, they align themselves to their customers internally, and they have a customer-centric view just like people developing products for the end customer do. So the idea here is that everyone has a piece of craft excellence, not just people developing the products and services that end customers get. Finally, the operations dimension. This is the last one. Structural agility, process agility, and enterprise agility are in this dimension. So structural agility is that relationship between teams and individuals and divisions and departments and products that creates an agile organization. Process agility encompasses a single value stream, the combination of all the discrete activities that individuals and teams do to deliver customer value in that value stream. And enterprise agility is the idea of agility being in the entire enterprise across teams, divisions, functions, and ultimately across organizations. So with structural agility, the goal is to bring the entire value stream into a single team, such that there are no handoffs, no waiting. The ideation all the way through to delivery of value to the customer is seamless. Okay, that's a big task. And in order to make that happen, the organization would have to be able to rapidly change its structure to allow for that kind of value flow. And we would start to see a network of teams bound together by working agreements and social contracts so that we could change our structure rapidly when customer demands or the market requires it. So at process agility, this domain, the goal is to create an adaptable, customer-focused process that delivers customer value. Now, this is what we think about when we think about Agile, because what's in this domain are all the things that you have probably heard the words about. Scrum, Kanban, less, safe. And of course, less and safe scale into the enterprise space as well, but also have a piece in this process agility space. This is how a single team or a single value stream delivers value. Now, some of the pro tips or the things we would see of an organization with a high level of business agility here is that they would move to audit governance rather than gate-based, approval-based governance. And they would really understand their value stream. And they would be constantly adapting their processes without stepping on the values and principles that those processes were supposed to give them in the first place. So with enterprise agility, the goal is to bring Agile across the entire organization. And if we did this, then we would find that every part of the organization is aligned to customer value, and we would have very, very few non-value added steps. Now remember what we said at the very beginning, that your organization is only as agile as your least agile department. So the idea here is to ruthlessly find the bottlenecks that keep your organization from expressing as much agility as it needs and eliminating those bottlenecks. And we want to keep adaptability, customer centricity, and working with change in the forefront as we do it. All right, so that was a high-level view of this big model, the domains of business agility, with the customer in the center and then 12 other domains surrounding the customer. Remember, I said it's a thinking tool. We want to use it as a thinking tool to answer these following questions. And the idea is that a business agility strategy doesn't live on its own. Its goal is to enliven and support the overall business strategy. You know, Agile came into the world to express more business value. That's its whole purpose. It's not an end in itself. A business agility strategy is not an end in itself. So we want to be thinking of how can we enliven this business strategy? And we're going to answer these questions through a series of pivotal conversations that I suggest be facilitated. Here are the questions. Why are we pursuing business agility in the first place? What level of agility do we need and where? And how much do we think we can realistically gain? How do we get it? So those questions are in business value order. But truthfully, we might have a why at the beginning, and as we go through those steps, the why gets refined. That's a normal thing. Okay, so let's talk about how we can host these pivotal conversations and tools that you can use to help the executives in your organization really look at business agility squarely. So, what level of agility do we need? After the why, this is the most important question. Now, what I like about the domains of business agility that we just walked through is that in that PDF that you can download on the Business Agility Institute website, there is actually a maturity model for each of the domains that we just talked about, from crawl to fly. So it gives you sentences that let you know if you were crawling at this domain of business agility, here's what would be happening. Walking, running, all the way up to flying. This is what would be happening. So it's a useful thing. And here's an example of it. This is the example of board focus. So that's one of the things under the board domain, is where is the board's focus? On customers first or on company first? Is the board allowing the organization to focus on customers and make long-term bets rather than just driving them towards short-term wins? And as you look at the sentences here, it's somewhat easy to say, where is the organization that I'm in? Where are we now? And where do we need to go to support and enliven our overall strategy? So these crawl to fly levels help us understand what level of agility do we need One of the best ways to help people do this is in a facilitated session where we have these posters all over the walls, all these domains I just talked about. Imagine a room that has all these posters all over the walls, and you ask executives questions like, where have we invested the most money in agility so far? And they go stand by that board and they talk with their peers about what they've gotten from that investment. Has it been worth it? You can ask all kinds of interesting questions. And one of the questions I suggest you ask is this one. What level of business agility do you think is needed to strengthen the overall business strategy? This is an example of one I facilitated. So the green dots are the ones that the executives put on these boards and said, okay, I think we need this level. Now notice that they're not all at the same level. So isn't that an interesting conversation to facilitate? That some leaders think we need this amount of business agility to support our strategy for board focus in this case. Some leaders think we need that much. That could create a lot of richness and a lot of shared understanding that creates a clearer strategy by the end. Now, the cool thing about this is if you do that sort of assessment, that live assessment with executives and with the transformation team, whoever in your organization is responsible for overall business agility, then what you can come out with at the end is sort of a heat map, like this one. The bigger icons are areas where we need more business agility or more focus in the organization. So it's a way just to show the organization what are we pursuing regarding business agility across each of those 12 domains. So that's the question of what level of agility do we need and where, which domains. Now to the question of how much agility can we realistically gain. When I ask executives this question, I give them the orange dots. They go to these boards and they put the orange dots on. And this is one of the reasons why it's useful for these conversations to be facilitated by someone who is going to help the group of executives really look at the meaning behind why they put the dot where they did. How much agility can the organization realistically gain? When executives put their orange dots all the way to the right, all the way up to run and fly, I will challenge them. I will say, hang on, to get that level of agility means you have to necessarily give up things about the way you're working now. In fact, give up beliefs about the way you see the world now. And then I'll talk about what those might be. And we'll be asking, do you want to do that? So what's underlying this is the level of the leaders and organizations' human development. Their literal level of human development creates a glass ceiling to how much do we think we can realistically get. So I want to warn you now, this might be sort of the disappointing part of this talk. Because so far we've talked about this grand glorious world where we've got this model and it seems like we can just make some decisions and get ourselves up to the top of business agility. And that's not necessarily what's going to be realistic in your organization. So I want to introduce you to a model of adult human development that has been researched for decades by many people. And it's a stepwise model of how we develop as adults, knowing that we can stop at any point, we don't have to keep going. And so what's possible in your organization will be capped by the level of adult development of the people leading it, top executive team, and your board. So let me show you this model first. It starts with truth force. So if you're an adult and you're organized at truth force, you do believe there is a capital T truth and a right way to do things, and we could just create a process to do that over and over again just that way. The whole idea with truth force is if I do my duty now, I'm going to get rewarded later. The shortcut name for this that we use is amber. It's easy just to have a color to talk about all of these things: conformist, role-driven, truth force. There's lots of different names for this, for each of these levels. So think about this. If someone is organized at amber, if that's the level of human development they're at, this notion of having an adaptable market vision might be crazy talk to them. It might not even make sense. Even though they know logically they need it, the way they're organized internally will fight against it. So strive drive. Strive drive, achievement, results driven, oriented. The idea is that initiative plus risk-taking gets me reward now. So much of our corporate world is organized at this level right now. The idea that we can predict and plan things, the idea that we want freedom and autonomy and innovation, and it's a sort of shuck and jive and always get market share and go, go, go. So strive drive, right? We're constantly striving. So someone organized at this level is going to care about business agility to the extent that it gets them the results they want now. So the back end, or the negative expression of strive drive, is that we just keep striving and we really don't care what we leave in our wake. And so each of these has a positive or a healthy and a negative or unhealthy expression. And in so much of our work right now, we're seeing the unhealthy expression of strive drive, and it absolutely will impact what's possible with your business agility strategy to support your overall business strategy. Okay. The next level up in human development is a belief that we are on one planet and we all have to come together to solve these big problems. In your organizations, you really don't have problems anymore. You have messes. I love that. Rod Collins, who wrote a book called Wiki Leadership a long time ago, he said that. We don't have problems, we have messes. And so in a mess, we need to have the innate knowledge and experience and skills of people from very different backgrounds to come together to figure out what to do. So this is where multi-stakeholder view comes online as a genuine way to solve problems, not just to get buy-in. It's called pluralistic relationship driven, green for short. This is where different perspectives are needed. We don't merely tolerate diversity, we want it. So human bond is the first level. If your leaders are organized at this level, this is the first level where the agile values really truly start to come online. Let me show you the final level that we see in most adults, in some adults. So these 4 levels are in most adults, and this last one is in just a very few. It's called flex flow, evolutionary purpose driven. So the idea with flex flow, someone organized at this level, is that they are looking for the thriving of the entire system. And their notion in their head is thrive and help others thrive. So nothing's a problem for someone organized at flex flow. Everything is an interesting challenge. Someone at flex flow will make a plan, but not believe their plan. They'll be okay when a change comes in and they'll say, what is this change asking me to do? What's the signal I'm getting here? So wisdom beyond rationality actually comes online as a skill set for someone organized at flex flow. So the reason I tell you this is because as you're looking at these crawl to fly indicators, what we're talking about is not just a desire to, let's say, run or fly. We're talking about whether or not we can actually achieve that. And if the people in our organization are organized at a level of mental complexity and functioning below which the level that's needed, you might not be able to get there. Now, I don't want to make a big deal about crawl to fly being mapped directly to these levels of human development, because it's not that clean. It's not anywhere near that clean, which is why I sort of blurred out those words. But what I want to tell you is pay attention to the level of adult human development in the organization. I mean, maybe that's the first question even. What level of human development do we think we're working with, and what level do we need to achieve the level of agility that we want to support our overall business strategy? It's a little bit of a messy thing, honestly. There's no test people can take that will tell you exactly how they're organized. But with a facilitator, with someone skilled in business agility and skilled in facilitation, that person can ask those questions that will allow the group to interrogate whether or not they have the right level of human development themselves. We don't have to have the answers for groups, but we have to help them have this really important and pivotal conversation. So how this works is that adults mature, grow, develop through each of these levels, and they do it in one step after the other after the other. Don't skip steps. This is literally an adult human development model, and anyone can stop at any step. So how much agility do you realistically think the organization can gain is really tightly coupled with where are we in our level of consciousness and our mental complexity and abilities to deal with an ever-changing world with our level of human development. So that might feel like some bad news. And for a long time in my own work as an Agilist and someone working with executive teams and with Agile teams and having trained thousands of Agile coaches all over the world, I know what it's like when I deliver this information and their faces fall. Yeah. I can tell you that what's important to me is that we have business agility, we have agility in general, that is sustainable and that thrives inside of organizations, inside of teams, inside of individuals. So although it's sort of a long road, maybe even an arduous climb, the reward is worth it. Because what's our alternative? Our alternative is to be upset at every change that comes along, to be upset when a new competitor enters the market, to be upset when climate change disrupts our supply chain. My goodness, I mean, like, we could go crazy being upset with all these changes that are going to continue to rock us. Or we could develop our capacity and our willingness and level of human development to be a match for that complexity, to allow ourselves to relax in the fact that we know how to metabolize change. And in fact, we know how to leverage it for the greatest good. So I want to let you know that the journey you'll be on when you start to move into business agility this way, looking at it straight-faced, sober, it could be an arduous one, maybe a long one. But let me tell you about arduous. So arduous has a couple different pieces to it. One is that it's a difficult and challenging climb, and it's going to take some time and skill. The other piece inside of arduous is ardor, passion, vision, and even love. It's possible to connect with a vision for what your organization can do in the world through your customers, through its workforce, such that you allow that to propel you. So you might have thought that I forgot this last question, but I didn't. It's how do we gain it? So once we've identified the level of business agility we need, where we need it, we've identified how much we can realistically get, the question of how do we get it? Now, this is the question that everyone wants to start with first. And it is the last one you can actually answer. Because if you start with it first, you don't have the insights and the options to feed your experiments. Because the idea of getting more business agility is simply this: from the insights and options you generated by looking at your organization, identifying the bottlenecks, and using the answers to the questions we just talked about as your guide, you'll set up experiments. You'll set up experiments one after the other. Because that's how we get more agility, is that we try something and we inspect and adapt. And of course, we can have a roadmap, but we just don't want to believe that it's true. We want to use it as a guide, and we want it to adjust as we learn more through each of our experiments. And so, great things to have as resources here are Lean Change, and also this new book that just came out a few months ago called Testing Business Models. If we test what we're doing for our customer value, and we test what we're doing for our internal customer value, we're much more likely to create that sort of end-to-end seamless delivery and so much less friction along the way. Imagine an organization that has all these things we've talked about, how there would be so much less friction, so much more joy, so much more meaning and purpose in the work. And because of all that, we would have an organization that has crazy, wild, wonderful profits and customers that were loyal to the company. That would be pretty great. So I'll have to tell you that every step of the journey is the journey, and the thing I want to recommend to you to fuel your journey is the why. I didn't talk too much about the why. Why are we pursuing business agility in the first place? Because that is going to be such a unique answer for every organization. But if you keep coming back to the why, as it changes, as you learn more, as it becomes more resonant and even more compelling, it can fuel this arduous journey, this journey of challenge and this journey of vision. Thank you. Thank you so much for your attention and for your careful consideration. I hope there's been something in here that's useful for you. I really want to encourage you to keep going and to host pivotal conversations about this so that you can get down to a strategy that has a good chance, a really good chance of working. My best to you. Thank you.